Okay, so recording has started. Let me share the slides. Okay, hopefully everybody can see that.
Looks good here.
Fantastic. Right, okay, well, let's make a start. So first of all, thank you everyone for coming onto this call. As you can see from the slide, this is the annual general meeting, AGM, for the BCS open source group. In terms of the agenda, first of all, I'll just sort of go through who we've got on our current steering group. There's a few people that I know couldn't attend this evening, so there's some apologies. I'll then just spend a few minutes to provide a little bit of a review of, I guess, the journey that we've been on over the past 12 months since the last AGM. That'll include some of the activities and the state of our group finances. And then, of course, we'll go into the main part of this call, which is the election of steering group members and then any other business. So in terms of the group we have, currently for the last 12 months, you have myself, David Pearson. I've been the chair of the group. Sulafad has been our treasurer. Meng has been helping with early careers. We've had Jeremy, who's been a general member of the group and has helped with events. Also, when we started in March of last year, I had Phil and Cornelia as part of the group. They dropped out during the year. So delighted to have Donald, who actually can't be on the call this evening, Dave and Mark join the group. And you'll see that we do have 2 inclusion officers in the group, and I'll cover that off as we go through this as a particular reason why I wanted to do that. So that is the current committee of the open source specialist group as we move forward this evening. So in terms of a little bit of a review of the past kind of 12 months, I guess it's fair to say that at the AGM last year, 2024, really we had to kind of re-establish a new group of people to run the group, a new committee. We had to effectively relaunch because there had been a long hiatus. There'd been pretty much no activity from the group, and I think that really the background to that was the COVID pandemic. I think people had drifted away and really hadn't come back. So needed to restart the group. And one of the first things we needed to do when we restarted the group was to essentially re-establish what our purpose was. You know, what's the mission statement? And in the context of being a BCS group, you can see on the screen here that we agreed that we would obviously drive professionalism and continuous career development. But essentially at the heart of this was really trying to be the expert hub for anything open source, trying to help the BCS play, I guess, a bigger part out in the wider world and be an opinionated leader in the open source ecosystem. So that is the mission that we've constructed last year, and that's the kind of the mission statement that has driven us along as we've progressed with a number of initiatives. So the next thing we've had to do as establishing the group last year was to fix a number of issues, including the web and social media presence. If anyone is familiar with the group from probably just over 12 months ago, you'll have known that the website that we had was actually run as an independent website outside of the remit or outside of the infrastructure of the BCS. Was incredibly difficult to administer. In fact, I think some of the passwords to get in there and manage the content had actually been lost. And essentially the website just didn't have the right look and feel as a website representing a group within the BCS. So we went through what seemed to be quite a long process to bring the website inside the BCS infrastructure. And of course, if you visit that website today, you'll see that it has the same look and feel as pretty much any other website for a specialist group now. Okay, through the website, you can see who's on the committee, what webinars and events we're planning to run, and there's also linkage there to events that we run with other groups across the BCS, and a link to past events, including a link to our YouTube channel. So really just bringing on board a single place to go if you want to really just interact with the group and find out more about us. Now, alongside that, from a social media perspective, we had a lot of debate about which of the channels, which of the platforms out there we should use. We settled on the use of LinkedIn, given that we're a BCS group, and I guess that from a professional volunteering point of view, we wanted to reach out to those across the ecosystem and didn't want to get involved in the politics involved with other platforms. So you'll see that we established our own group on LinkedIn, and typically when anything needs to be communicated to our followers, not only do I, as the chair, send out emails to the followers, I'll normally also post on this particular group. We are open to other platforms going forward. I guess it just would be based on the needs of the group and any kind of feedback from members. So that was one of the first things we did. With a website and social media channel in place, the next thing we did was, of course, to put a survey together. So many of you on the call will hopefully recognize when I talk about a survey. You would have received an email with a link to a form. You'll see from the results here, we did get what I thought was a reasonable number of responses, given that we had this long pause, a long hiatus. And from the results coming back, it was very, very interesting. Most people responding want technical content in the form of kind of online webinars and events. So that has really formed the kind of the basis on which we've moved forward. That has allowed us to, as a committee, decide what the priority should be for the different kind of events and the different activities we get involved with. So that has meant that we focused on re-establishing webinars, and throughout the year we've managed to run a number of webinars, both through members of the committee running those and delivering those, but also reaching out far and wide to do events with other groups. So I think Bob is on the call this evening. He runs the BCS in Kent. A few months ago, I actually went to one of the events. We did a hybrid event, and I actually presented around ethics and open source. Also, I've had recently one of the online webinars we ran around open source distributed streaming was delivered from somebody from Lyft working across in San Francisco, et cetera, et cetera. So we've run a number of events, and we'll continue as we move forward to do that as well. And I'm very, very passionate about collaboration with other groups across the BCS, bringing our capabilities together, doing joint events, sharing the burden of putting those events on for members. And we'll continue to do that. The other thing we focused on in the year was really the membership. So membership has mainly been fairly static between kind of 900 and you can see on the screen here 964. But you'll also see from the kind of members that we have, they are typically men between 40 and 60. And I'm certainly being involved in open source, would like to see a lot more kind of diversity and inclusion happening here. I really do feel that ethically, we're going to be stronger as a group if we have a broader appeal and a broader membership. So, as I mentioned earlier on in this call, with a couple of the members of the original committee dropping out, a decision was taken to actually bring on board not one but two inclusion officers that we now have. So Mark and Dave, thank you for being part of the group and thank you for what you're doing. As we move forward, hopefully I'd like to see a lot more effort to expand our membership and to make certain that it's a more diverse audience as we move forward. Okay, so before we move on to the elections, what I'd like to do at this point is just ask our treasurer, Sulafat, just to spend a couple of minutes just to talk about the group finances. So Sulafat, if you just want to come off mute, please.
Yeah,
you're there. Perfect. Right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David. Okay, so thank you everyone and good evening once again. So we started the group March 2024 with a budget of 550 at hand. And we're able to collaborate with one of the existing committee, OSSG. They actually deal with hardware, software, and all that. So they give us an insight of an event that they would like to, established, and so we were able to sponsor them. And we did that with the tune of 342, and leaving us a balance of 208. So, but because it was last year, we started last year, and we're still trying to do so many things like what David mentioned earlier, stabilizing the committee, creating a website and all that. So we didn't really focus so much on event sponsorship. So what happened was that we didn't utilize the remaining balance, and that went with last year. So due to the generosity of the finance team, so they actually approved a 690 for us, hoping that we will do more than last year. So currently we have a 690 budget at hand. We haven't sponsored any events so far. We are hoping to reach out to the same community and many more, and see how we can increase our audience through this sponsorship, and as well as organizing events, in-person events, online events, hybrid event, any kind of events. We could even go as much as maybe organizing an event that could bring a kind of like an income, something like a paid event. So this is what we are looking at. So, but at the moment on the finances, this is what we have. We have 690 on budget. We've not spent anything out of the 690. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sullivan. So with the finances as they currently are, we do, as Sullivan has mentioned, have £690 moving forward. And so from a kind of, I guess, an aspirational point of view, as we move forward in the next kind of 12 months, what I see is that we'll continue with webinars. I'd also like to see us finally organise and deliver an in-person event. Some of the discussions we've had so far would include doing that with other groups from around the BCS, or actually collaborating with the open source hardware group, which is an external group to the BCS, the group that we sponsored last year. We'd like to do something around that. We'd also like to kind of grow our reach by publishing various articles, not just in the BCS IT Now magazine, but also starting to look at how we could publish articles on different websites, journals, potentially contribute to different blogs. We've already mentioned that we are very much looking at our membership. I'd like to grow that membership, but I'd also like to see it become more inclusive and diverse as we move forward. And then we've also started to talk about how we as a group could have a presence at external events. Normally every February, one of the events that takes place actually in Belgium is FOSDEM, which is arguably one of the larger free open source events that takes place. And I think we're looking to potentially go to that and others. So these are all in discussion. They're aspirational at the moment. Whatever committee we have after this evening's meeting, we'll obviously meet to discuss those, and we'll put a plan in place. And obviously we'll communicate that with members, and hopefully we can get people on board to help us drive that forward. Okay, so I guess at this point we now move into the kind of the main part of an AGM, which is all about the steering group. And I guess what we need to do this evening is, first of all, look at the main part of our committee, particularly the mandatory roles that are needed by the BCS to exist and to function as a group. And then secondly, once we've done that, we'll move on to what you'll see on the right-hand side of this slide, which are the other roles that are also available on the committee. So if I focus on the left-hand side of this chart, you'll see that there are mandatory roles required to run the group. So that's chair, treasurer, an early careers officer, and an inclusion officer. Those are the ones that are laid down by the BCS. Now, leading into this call, we do have people on our committee filling the roles and responsibilities in each of those roles. However, as you'll see from the slide, I made a very difficult decision many weeks ago that, due to personal and actually time issues that I have, I've decided that I'll resign this evening as the chair of the group. We did communicate through email and through the LinkedIn group that we have that I will be resigning, and I've invited people to come forward if you wanted to step in and act as the chair of the group. Now, coming into this call, unfortunately, there was nobody that responded to that. So there has been some initial discussion within the group. And what I'm going to do at this point, I'm just going to pause for a minute. I'm going to ask if anyone on the call who's joined this evening is interested. You have to be a professional member of the BCS. Is there anybody that's interested in stepping forward to be the chair of the group? I'm going to pause. If you're interested in this role, if you could just please unmute yourself and just make yourself known to the call, please. Silence. If there's silence, I'll assume I can just move on with the elections. Oh, okay. So with obviously nobody stepping forward through the email or the LinkedIn messaging, like I said, there has been some discussion within our group, and Silafat, who is our current treasurer, did indicate that she would be interested in stepping forward to act as the chair. And in order to help her out, Jeremy also suggested that he might be available to be a vice chair. At this point, could I just ask Silafat, are you still interested and prepared to step into the role of chair of the group?
Yes, David.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And Jeremy, if you're still on the call, are you still okay to be the vice chair?
Yes, I am. For those who don't know, I was formerly a chair of this group, and I've said to Silafat, I'm delighted Silafat standing forward. I'm very much there to be a vice chair and try and help her from my past experience. But I've got every confidence Silafat will be a fantastic chair.
Perfect. Thanks, Jeremy. Okay, so at this point, the proposition is that Silafat will step into the role of chair, aided and helped by vice chair with Jeremy. Does anybody have any issues with that? Any complaints? I'll assume that silence means we're okay with that and we can move forward. No, seems like we're okay. Perfect. All right. Well, thank you both. Really appreciate you stepping up to do that. Now, of course, that means that Silafat has so far been the treasurer, and because it's one of the mandatory roles on the group, you're not able to have both the chair and the treasurer at the same time. So that now means that we need a new treasurer. Can I ask if there's anybody on the call who's not in one of the other roles on the committee, if you'd like to step forward and be the treasurer? Okay, so at this point, I'm assuming that there's nobody else on the call that wants to step into that role. This is part of the discussion that I did have with the group, and I agreed with Silafat and Jeremy that in the event that nobody else came forward, I would step into the role of treasurer. Whilst obviously I'm resigning from chair because of time commitments, I do feel that the small amount of work required around being a treasurer would be okay. So unless anyone has any issues with this, I'll step into being the treasurer of the group for the next 12 months. Is everybody okay with that? Is there any complaints?
Thank you, David. Thanks for stepping up and taking the role. It's much appreciated.
Okay, thanks, Jeremy.
Thank you, David.
Thanks for the fact. So we're okay with that going forward then?
Yeah.
Fantastic. Right. So at this point, we now have the mandatory roles that we need to function and exist as a group. Running into this meeting, Dave, Mark, and Meng all agreed that they wanted to continue in their particular roles, which is why I'm not mentioning these. So we have a core committee and we'll move forward. Okay, so let's move on to the right-hand side of the chart. So there are other roles available on the committee. They're not mandatory. I guess each of the specialist groups within the BCS decides whether it requires these particular roles and or whether they don't. Now, from a communication point of view, you'll see that there are a couple of the roles where I've had interest. So, Pietra, are you on the call this evening?
Yes, hello.
Perfect. Hi, good evening. Sorry, I couldn't see you for a minute because I'm presenting. You came forward and suggested that you'd be interested in being a male coordinator for the group. Is that something you're still interested in doing for us?
Yes.
Fantastic. Okay, so does anybody have anybody else wanting to stand as a male coordinator? Anybody have any comments, any issues with that, or can we move forward with Pietra joining our group as male coordinator? Oh, sounds like that's okay. So, Pietra, welcome to the group. You're the male coordinator. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll be in touch to get you onboarded in due course. The next role that I had interest around was the publicity officer. Harry Krishnan, I can see you're on the call this evening. Thank you very much for joining us. I know you're based across in, I think it's Florida. Are you still interested in performing the job of publicity officer?
Yes, David, I am.
Fantastic. Okay, so if no one else has any issues, any problems with that, I'll just pause for a minute. Sounds like we're okay. Right, so if you're still happy to go ahead with that, then welcome to the group. You're the publicity officer.
Thank you.
No problems, and we'll be in touch after the call to get you onboarded and set up. Okay, so there are a couple of others at the bottom of this slide: education, disability, and there are general committee roles. I've not had any kind of explicit interest from anybody around fulfilling these. If there's anybody on the call that's interested in joining the group as one of these three officer roles, do you want to make yourself known now before we move on?
I'm not sure how much I can contribute. Obviously, I'm quite busy with being chair of BCS Kent, but I'm happy to be a general committee member, and we'll see how it goes, basically, in terms of workload.
Perfect. No, I'm happy to do that, Bob. That's fine.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you.
Oh, sorry. In terms of disability officer, I didn't realize that was also up there if need be. And I know I just wondered if that would be possible alongside inclusion officer.
It is, yeah, absolutely. So yeah, if you want to have those two specific roles on the committee, that's no problem whatsoever.
Yeah, that's fine.
Fits in. Okay to do that?
Yeah, it fits in with other things I do already for Tech for Disability and also the neurodiverse IT group.
Okay,
so that's fine.
perfect. Thank you very much. Good. All right. So what I will do after the meeting is I'll minute this meeting to show that we have new members joining the group, and we'll move forward in due course. So before I move on to
I think there's a message, David.
Oh, sorry, what was the message?
That was from me. Sorry, that was Mark. That was just BCS has very, very few constraints on one person holding multiple roles, so you are fine on that one.
Yeah, I was going to say that the only real constraint is on the mandatory roles. You can't, you basically as an individual can't have multiple mandatory roles. So a chair couldn't be a treasurer, an inclusion officer couldn't be the chair, that kind of thing, which is why I've divided this into the left and the right of the slide to make sure that we avoid the politics around that.
Yeah.
So Mark, you're absolutely fine to continue in the current role with inclusion and to take on disability as well. That'd be most welcome. So thank you. Okay, right. So that concludes the part of this call where we've elected the new committee going forward. Can I ask at this point if anyone has any other business they want to raise, any comments, any discussion around running of the group? Mark?
Sorry, actually, it was more around what you said in terms of activities. So I've just joined from the neurodiverse IT group where I'm deputy chair. And Dave, I know you mentioned about collaboration, so I just wanted to really emphasize that. I think we could. That's one link we could actually do. Be the neurodiverse group and this. So sorry, that's maybe not quite about. Yeah, I was just mentioning this in terms of any other business.
So
thanks.
Thank you, Mark, for raising it. And I know that, Dave, this is something you're passionate about as well. I think that as we look at the membership moving forward, and you've seen the kind of the diversity or lack of diversity in the group at the moment, I very much welcome anything that you can do to help us be, more inclusive, to look at disabilities, etc., etc. We'll definitely be looking at that as we move forward. Jeremy.
I just wanted to say, David, I think we ought to, you owe you a big debt of thanks. You've worked very hard this year, and I know how hard it is having done it before, but you had to pick us up from nothing. I took over a thriving group when I became chair, and you really have got us back going again. I think we should recognise that and thank you for what you've done.
And thank you for your comments, Jeremy. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you, David.
Okay, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Okay, so if there's nothing else to talk about at this point, a little bit of a short meeting. It's obviously a little bit different when it's an AGM. So thank you, everyone, for being on the call this evening. For those of you that have volunteered to step forward and be part of the committee, we will be back in touch with you shortly, and we'll get you onboarded with all of the things you need to perform the role. Thank you for helping out. And at this point, we've managed to keep it to half an hour. I'll end the call and I'll give you half an hour back in your evening. So thank you very much. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, David.
Thank you,
Thanks,
David.
bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, David.
Bye.